All right, welcome to the fourth and final review of the evening. Up this time is Sam and Max, The Devil's Playhouse, or perhaps to be more accurate, Sam and Max, The Devil's Playhouse Remastered. Um, the last game in the episodic Sam and Max trilogy, beautifully remastered. As the intergalactic villains who seek the Devil's Toy Box close in and Max's psychic abilities grow beyond his control, the freelance police must come up against their most frightening adversary yet, the power of Max's mind. Okay, so indeed, this is the third and final season of Telltale Games' Sam and Max releases. Like, if you will recall, we have reviewed the remastering of seasons 1 and 2 a few years back. Indeed, I think we did Sam and Max Beyond Time and Space two and a half years ago. Like, considerably more time has passed in between season 2 and season 3 of the remastering, which mirrors how it was back in the day. Sam and Max season 1 and season 2 came out pretty close to proximity of each other, with Sam and Max 3, The Devil's Playhouse, coming out a few years later. There's a few reasons for that. First of which is Telltale had a few other series in between seasons. Like, they had Strong Bad, Wallace and Gromit, and the series immediately preceding this, another LucasArts franchise, The Tales of Monkey Island.
I'm sure you've probably heard of it.
But from what I've been able to glean from the patch notes on Steam, it looks like the reason why this remastering took all the time it did is because they did a very extensive reworking of the game. First and foremost, they have implemented full point-and-click controls. That may not sound like all that an impressive thing, or you might be wondering what's up with that. So, Sam and Max, The Devil's Playhouse, is kind of the bridge between the classic point-and-click era of Telltale and their more cinematic, console-friendly, The Walking Dead and company.
Yeah, wasn't this originally console only?
No, but it was it's the first release that was built around controller controls. Which worked well enough.
When did the original game come out?
2010.
Yeah, so it was in that era when games were coming out, they just had controller support and not very good keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, well, this is because The Devil's Playhouse here prioritized controller support. Yeah. I played the original release with a mouse and keyboard, and it was pretty awful. That's because this is full-on 3D controls.
Right.
And here's the maybe not so secret about that kind of styling and point-and-click adventure games. They don't really mesh all that well. This is a problem that went all the way back to the dawn of point-and-click adventure games jumping into the 3D space. Like when I played Grim Fandango in the late '90s, I remember the controls being fairly awkward.
Right.
Trying to do full-on 3D and point and click. It's a model that didn't work out all that well, if I'm being honest, which is why it was so rarely attempted. And honestly, it's the reason why the remake of or remastering of Grim Fandango has controller support and it works much better. It's just, the 3D control scheme and controller support mesh better, to the point where I actually played via controller this time. It's a bit, it's got a bit of its own clunk, trying to maneuver the spaces, the clickable items in between with the thumbstick. But like I said, it worked. I admit I didn't try the point and click controls because honestly, I didn't see the notes until after I completed the game. Like, just how it goes.
Right.
Like if that, I played most of this pre-release, in fact. So, like, I don't think these notes came out until the game got released.
Yeah.
Not something I was privy to beforehand. But, the good news is, full point and click support is here. If you want it, which is good for those who want to play this is still a traditional point and click adventure game. Let's say the style of adventure game that Telltale became known for, that didn't start until The Walking Dead, really. Arguably with Jurassic Park, the game, but in all honesty, that particular adventure game series was emulating, of all things, Quantic Dreams bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think you ever want to hear inspired by Heavy Rain in your marketing material.
Some people do, but those people are also on watch lists.
Right. Anyway, so that's one of the bigger things that's been done to the Devil's Playhouse. But perhaps the biggest thing that got reworked is the lighting. And the lighting was already a big step up from what was seen in the first two seasons of Sam and Max.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm talking back in the day. Like, this is really the first Telltale game to leap up to the next level, as they say.
Yeah.
Probably because this release wasn't being constrained by fucking WiiWare.
Yeah, WiiWare, and wasn't the first one originally going to be a PS2 title?
I don't know. But this, The Devil's Playhouse was built for the PlayStation 3. It's the first PlayStation Telltale game that got released. The previous two seasons, they were built for the GameTap service.
Yep. That's where I remember at least playing some of it.
And Wallace and Gromit, that appeared on the Xbox Live Arcade very poorly. But we're not talking about that particular title. The point is, I remember playing this back in the day and noting it being a very big jump forward in terms of production values of Telltale games.
Right.
Now, granted, that was always there was always a limit to what could be done, because they stuck with the Telltale tool to the bitter end.
Literally, in fact.
Yes. And we're talking about a tool set that was built in the mid 2000s, like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not sure how dated it was in, say, 2010. Like, we're still, like, Unity is just becoming a thing on the indie scene.
Mm-hmm.
And UE3, but it's nowhere, like, the engines are nowhere near as ubiquitous as they would become just a few years later.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they've gone in and they've reworked the lighting to make it more cinematic, more dynamic. You're basically adding 14 years worth of technology to the game, while also keeping the film grain that was put into this season for artistic purposes, let's say.
I guess the $1 million question is, can you turn the film grain off?
Not really.
Ugh.
Or let me check. Maybe they did do that.
Yeah, because I know there are very few things where I leave the film grain on, because a lot of times it just ends up giving me a headache.
Mm.
But that's a personal preference thing.
Yeah, I'm not. Anyway, audio quality has been boosted, remastered, remixed, not being constrained by the downloadable services of the age. Even the even the PlayStation 3 download, and also worth noting, the first episode, The Penal Zone, was a launch app for the iPad.
Oh man.
Yeah. But like an example is some music that was MIDI synth only has been re-recorded to use actual live instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, this is the stuff that took 2+ years to work on. The Nutraspecs have been added to all versions of the game. This is actually a feature I did not know existed at the time when I played it back in the day, because it was only in the PlayStation 3 version. There's actually a long story behind this psychic power, but it basically involves it was going to be attached to an ARG that got canceled midway through production. Yeah, here we go. The film grain looks nicer, and you can turn it off if you want.
Good.
Yeah. The game's user interface got an overhaul. Once again, because this season was done so far apart from the other seasons, it had different UI, different UX, different character models than the other seasons. They've actually gone and unified all 3 seasons in terms of those interface and character designs. And have added other accoutrements, like Max's mode wheel now is a metallic shine. It's got a metallic shine to it. Mm-hmm. There's been some other episode-specific changes that are listed under spoiler materials, so I won't get into those. But like I said, they've actually gone, like, I suppose, to give one thing away, so to speak, as this isn't really a spoiler. The first episode, the Penal Zone, the Devil's Playhouse, City Streets are all completely different now, as opposed to they were made out of shared parts and assets. One of those cheats that developers will do when they're on a budget or a time crunch.
Yeah, we've already made these like city layouts. Let's just click and drag over here.
Like, or apparently, like, they've made the straight and narrow Sam and Max's street straight and narrow now, whereas it was bent in the original game. Also worth noting, in regards to the original 2010 release, if you didn't get it back in the day, there is good news on that front. Because it's been included as free DLC in the package. So if you don't like the changes that have been made, or if you want to, if you're doing a comparison video, which is honestly kind of beyond our current technology, you can go and get the original version, which I feel isn't done enough. It's one of those conversations that's come up periodically when we talk about retro titles. Having the remastering, but also having the original. Having the remaster overwrite the original can be contentious. Anyway, so yeah. I'm not sure if this is the most extensive reworking of all of the remastered Sam and Max episode packs. It wouldn't surprise. I'm willing to bet it is, just given the sheer amount of time that was spent on this versus the other seasons. But a lot of work has been poured into the Devil's Playhouse here. Now with I suppose with all that out of the way, what about the game series itself? I'm like, honestly, it's a bit hard for me to talk about without going into spoilers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the most contentious stuff in the Devil's Playhouse, very spoilery. I'm like, I really can't talk about it.
This almost feels like a topic of discussion thing, almost, because we'd be going through, 3 games?
Yes, but the Devil's Playhouse is pretty infamous among the fan base. And in general terms, it's because this got a lot darker than Sam and Max has typically been. I mean, it's still recognizably Sam and Max. It's got the Sam and Max absurdity to it, but this is also darker, grittier. There's a lot more character development, which is a very odd thing to say about a Sam and Max series.
Yeah. From what I remember of the older ones, a lot of them were very Saturday morning cartoon. And this is more...
Saturday morning Nickelodeon cartoon, maybe.
Yeah, this one's kind of... Go ahead, Adam.
Sort of, but not really. But Like there are actual consequences in the Devil's Playhouse, like culminating in a not very happy ending. It's really, 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 really hard to talk about this without getting into spoilers. So
yeah, especially because the game just came out 4 days ago.
It did come out. This version did come out just 4 days ago.
Yeah,
but the game itself originally got released in 2010, so it's technically 13 years old.
Yeah,
but still,
it's a re-release for a new audience type situation.
Right. So I'll tell you what. There'll be an addendum to this next week because we've already locked in the topic of discussion for this week, barring any major news. But I think next week, for that show, we'll go into the Devil's Playhouse spoiler discussion, because it's like I really can't talk about what makes the season without going into what makes the season tick.
Right.
So with that in mind,
part 2, ladies and gents.
Yeah. What I can say in general terms is this is by far the most sophisticated Sam and Max narrative I've ever seen. And I've seen pretty much all of them. Like, I've played all 3 Telltale seasons, both back in the day and the remasters. Got the reviews to prove it. I played Sam and Max Hit the Road. I watched the entire television series. The only thing I haven't done is read the comics, which, in fairness, is a pretty key piece of Sam and Max lore. But it's also by far the most obscure.
And probably one of the more difficult things to get a hold of now.
To put it simply, the Devil's Playhouse took a lot of risks, narratively speaking. And we'll leave it at that. So, in terms of pricing, I believe this lines up with the previous Sam and Max remastered packages, as it's coming out at $20, which is about what you would have paid back in the day, maybe a bit more. Like I said, it's been 13 years since I bought the original version, so forgive me if I don't remember how much that cost. It's also kind of moot because you can't get the original version separate right now. But
it's not even on PSN anymore because of the whole Telltale going bye-bye.
Yeah, you got delisted. And you do get a discount if you own the previous seasons. It comes out to, if you already own all the discounting, because it's also 25% off, launch special discount. You can get it for $13.49.
Right now I have a 10% launch special.
I'm just reading what it says here on the Steam page.
It might be giving you a special discount because I'm not logged in, so it's not reading that I have any Sam Mac purchases. So I'm thinking the base discount. The
Yeah,
base
that's
discount,
probably
if you
what it
own
is.
nothing else, Sam Max is 10%. But if you probably have others, it goes up from there.
Yeah, it's the 25% off if you own another season.
Hmm.
And you can get the entire bundle for $60.
So basically, the price of a new game gets you all 3 games.
Yeah. I mean, is this worth $20? I'd say mostly yes. It's just I would not recommend this for first-time players.
I guess, would you recommend it if they already have access to the original? Would you recommend buying it again?
Yes.
Right.
Given the reworking that's been done here. Though it depends if they enjoyed it or not. Because
That is valid.
Once again, there are people who absolutely hated the direction that Devil's Playhouse took. And I can't say they were off base with that. So that is worth noting. Like I said, it's really hard to talk about why without getting into the core of the story and how it plays out over the entire 5 episodes.
Right.
Once again, what I can say is, Sam and Max have never gotten this serious before. Anyway, so a bit of a convoluted recommendation here, but I feel that is very appropriate for fucking Sam and Max.
Like on brand.
I mean, well, yeah, it's like this is a series that will make jokes about its own convoluted item progression and stuff like that.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I think that's going to be about it for the Devil's Playhouse here, and indeed about it for our review session. So, coming up on the week ahead. So, let me see here. Coming up on... No, that's not the right day. On Wednesday, August 21st, we'll be welcoming back to the program Rue of the Retro Room Games. We've got a few new releases to talk about. Let's see, we've got the Game Boy Advance version of Chip's Challenge. I'm trying to remember if we talked about that.
I didn't even know they had one.
The Song of Mortis, Gala of Battle for the Game Boy, Escape 2042 for the Game Boy Advance and Sega Genesis, and the upcoming Kickstarter campaign for Supercharged Brothers. So, quite a bit to talk about. We were supposed to have Rue a few months ago, but things cropped up and schedules got realigned and all that stuff. And we do have a new episode of MSP planned for Wednesday. On August 23rd in the evening, we have a new multiplayer madness spectacle as we will play the 3v3 strategy game Spectre Divide, which is currently going through playtest mode. So that's a limited thing that I agreed to accidentally. I thought it was an early access release. So we can do a multiplayer madness video for that, but not really a review. Anyway, so with that in mind, until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.